Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So, this is going to be a little bit of a PSA, like a video to get your attention and to raise awareness on an ongoing situation, right? And this is a situation that I personally have witnessed firsthand myself, because I used to work there. And I was seeing this stuff go on right in front of me week after week, month after month. And like I said, unfortunately, at that time, I couldn't really do anything. I couldn't really go to anybody. I couldn't really say anything or bring it to anybody's attention because at that time, I was kind of stuck. I was kind of backed into a corner there where like that was my only job at the moment. I didn't really have the luxury or the opportunity to, there weren't like openings at other mechanic shops that I could just go to and leave. You know what I mean? So I was kind of stuck there for that time being. So all I could really do is keep my head down and just lay low until eventually another shop opening came up, and I was eventually able to leave this mechanic shop and go to the other one. And then as soon as I left, I then proceeded to try to bring this to people's attention and to raise awareness on what was going on and what I witnessed. I even took it directly to that company, to that shop company, to like their GM, and absolutely nothing was ever done about it. So either they know about what was going on, they just don't care, or they themselves are potentially also in on the scheme. I don't know. But I tried. And I even made a video on this topic like 2 years ago, like when it first kind of like happened. But I had a lot less followers back then than what I do now. Now, don't get me wrong, I still have a small amount of followers, but I have significantly more now than I did 2 years ago. So I am hoping that with a slightly larger audience this time around, that maybe I might be able to actually do something or actually help somebody. So long story short, this mechanic shop that I worked at was scamming, deceiving, lying to, cheating, and stealing from customers, from people. And they were stealing their money. They were lying to them about work being done to their cars. They were lying. They were charging people for parts that were never being installed. Just like a bunch of stuff like this. And yeah. So if I can do anything to prevent people in the future from this happening to them, from more victims of this con, right, is what it is. It's a con. It's a scheme. If I could prevent that from happening to other people, then at least I know that I tried. This video even helps you. So the shop that we are talking about in this video is Tuffy. And a lot of people have probably heard of this shop. A lot of people have heard of Tuffy. You may have even taken your car to a Tuffy at some point in your life, or you know someone who has, right? And here's the thing. I'm not even saying that this is happening at every Tuffy, because more than likely it's not. That'd be kind of insane if it was. It'd be pretty freaking crazy. But it was happening at this particular location, and that I know for a fact. And here's the thing: this isn't just limited to Tuffy. This stuff can be happening at any automotive mechanic shop. It doesn't have to just be a Tuffy. It can be anybody, right? It could be a Midas. It could be a Valvoline, anything, okay? So this video is to help just make people aware of scams and schemes and raise awareness so that this doesn't happen to other people in the future. So that this doesn't happen maybe to you watching this video right now. If I could even prevent you from getting scammed, then I'll sleep easy at night, knowing that at least I did something. So let's get into it. So like I said, I worked at my local Tuffy Automotive for quite a while. And during that time of working there as a mechanic, I witnessed some pretty insane things. So let's talk about the scams, right? So this particular location had a really nasty habit of ripping people off by telling them that certain parts on their cars were bad, and then proceeded to charge the customer to replace those bad parts. And the customer would pay to have those parts replaced. Problem is, the parts weren't replaced. There was nothing wrong with the car in the first place. The cars were fine. The part didn't need to be replaced. They'll tell the customer that they replaced the part, even though they never touched the car, and still get the money for that part that they didn't even replace. And what I mean by that, I'll give an example, right? So there was a kid, probably, 18, 19 years old, right? He comes into the shop with a Kia Soul, right? And the belt, the serpentine belt, is making a lot of noise, like screeching, squealing, like really bad belt noise. Brings it into Tuffy, right? And they look it over. They tell the kid, hey, you're going to need a new serpentine belt, right? So they write him up the cost of a new serpentine belt, like $40-$50 or something for the belt, and then like $130-ish something for like time, labor to do the actual job or whatever. And the kid agrees to it and gives them the okay to proceed with the work, right? There was nothing wrong with the belt on this car at all. Belt was perfectly fine. I looked at the belt myself. There was no cracking. There wasn't even glazing. There was like nothing. Like the belt was in really good condition, actually. So all it was the belt was loose. And here's the thing. The Kia Soul is a bit of a weird car in regards of like a lot of the modern day cars have like an automatic tensioner pulley in the belt system. Well, the Kia Soul does not have an automatic tensioner pulley, right? With a spring that just keeps pressure. It has more of a old school traditional style tensioner pulley where you have to actually like loosen a bolt, like a nut, and actually push or pull the pulley and put tension on it, and then hold it there with that tension, and then tighten that bolt back up, right? Kind of a older style and whatnot. Surprised Kia uses that. I'm kind of surprised, but that's what they have, right? So all they did was his belt was loose. The tensioner was loose. So they readjusted his tensioner, tightened the bolt, and that was it. The screeching was gone. just like that. They were done in like probably not even 10 minutes, right? But they kept the car out there in the shop for like at least an hour just for the time to rack up, to make it look like it was taking longer than what it actually was, so that they could rack up that hourly shop rate. You know what I mean? So they let the car sit back there for about an hour after just tightening a tensioner. And then they go and they tell the kid, your car is done. This kid ends up paying like almost $300 something for a new serpentine belt and shop labor, when he did not get a belt, and they were done in less than 10 minutes for the adjustment. Charged him $300 for a belt that was never installed, and charged him like an hour for shop labor when it was done in 10 minutes. That's a scam. That is a scam. Another thing that I've seen is an old lady brought in her car, and her battery was bad. It was a bad battery, is what it was. They charged her for the price of installing a new starter on her car. A starter? You know what I mean? When it was bad battery. And, her being an old lady and not really knowing anything about cars, obviously, she doesn't know any better. She agrees to the work, to the price estimate, and again, just like the other guy, gives them the okay to proceed with the work. All the shop does is put in a brand new battery. They drop a brand new battery into her car, but they write her up for a starter replacement, because the starter costs a lot more than the battery, obviously. So she paid somewhere around $500, maybe even closer to $600 or so for this starter replacement, when all they did was put a battery in her car. They left the pre-existing starter on the car because the starter was fine, obviously. And yeah, she paid $500 to $600 for a starter that was never put on her car. That's a scam. Okay? They are stealing people's money. And here's the thing. That particular Tuffy has this system. Everyone is in on it. Everyone is in on it. Every single mechanic there, the manager, everybody is in on this scam. They have put this together. It's like constructed. It's like organized. They've probably been doing this for years. It's crazy. So another thing that they look for is really nice, like nicer, newer, higher end, like luxury type model cars, like BMW, Mercedes, Volvo, stuff like that, Acura, Lexus, stuff like that, right? And then they could, and the reason why is because the parts on those higher end, more luxury type of cars, the parts on those cars are going to significantly cost a lot more than the parts on like a lot of the lower end, more basic, like base model type of cars, if that makes sense. So they're going to bring in more money for luxury types of parts, right? And then the other thing they look for is they primarily look for females, for women, drivers, owners, or really old owners, people that are like 60 years old or older, right? That people that might not really know any better, you know what I mean? And but primarily they try to target women, to target females with their cars. They did get that kid, that 18 and 19-year-old kid, and I think that was more or less just because he was really young, and they probably got the impression or the vibe from him that this kid probably doesn't know any better, probably doesn't really know mechanical automotive car stuff. So they probably just thought and assumed that they could just get away with it and pull a fast one on that kid, which I guess they were right, because they did. But primarily they target women and people in the older community, but not always. It just depends. And another scam that they like to run is periodically they will advertise like a free brake inspection. Right? People will bring in their cars, even if, here's the thing, even if there's not even anything wrong with their brakes, like even if their brakes aren't even making noise or anything like that, maybe if they're not even having brake problems, right? But these people will still bring in their cars anyway. One, because they see that sign, they see free brake inspection, they see that and they think, well, how can I turn that? How can I pass on that? How can I pass on a free brake inspection, right? And secondly, they don't really know anything about cars, and they might not know if their brakes are bad or good anyway. So whatever the reason is, these people will bring their cars in for this free brake inspection at Tuffy, and they'll get the cars in there, they'll get the cars up in the air on the racks and stuff like that, right? Get the tires off of them and stuff like that. And they'll go and they will perform these inspections, right? Here's the thing. If the car actually does need, like, let's say the car actually does need, like, brakes and rotors and stuff. Like, if it actually does need it and they are bad, they will replace it and they will still do the normal side of things. They will still do that work on actually replacing parts. But what they are also doing as well is, let's say they'll pull a car up in the air, have the tires off for this brake inspection, even if the brakes are perfectly fine. Like, let's say it has almost brand new, like, thick brake pads, rotors look great, nothing wrong with the brake system whatsoever. They will still tell, sometimes, if they think that they can get away with it, they will still tell that customer that their brakes are bad, that they need brakes. They will tell the customer, oh, your brake pads are wore out, they're really thin, your rotors are messed up or warped or whatever, you know what I mean? And they'll tell this stuff to the customer. And it's going to be like a 50-50 shot. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes they'll tell this to the customer that they need brakes, and the customer will just decline and not have the work done, which is okay. They'll just leave. But sometimes, right? Sometimes, though, the customer will say yes, and they will give the approval for the brake work to be done. And like I said, this is a car where nothing is wrong with the brakes whatsoever. The pads are new, the pads are thick, the rotors are fine, the brakes are perfect. They will go tell the customer, your brakes are bad, you need pads, you need rotors, yada, yada, yada. And then they will charge the customer for the pads, rotors, whatever else they're saying is bad. Whether it be calipers, brake hoses, drums, whatever. They will go back to the customer. They will give them this, whatever the list is for all this stuff wrong with their brakes. Customer will either approve or deny. But if they approve, then the shop will proceed with the work, right? So this customer will pay over $1,000 something for this imaginary brake work when the shop doesn't do a single thing. All they did was put the car up in the air and take the tires off, and that's it. They charged them over $1,000 something for all this brake work, put the tires back on the car, and sent it out the door. And they did absolutely nothing to the brakes, but just got like $1,000 from this customer because they didn't know any better. Because they came to this shop and they trusted this shop. They trusted these mechanics to tell them the truth, and they got scammed. And like I said, months upon months upon months, I was there just witnessing this. And like I said, there was no other job opened at any other shop. There's no other options for me as far as, career went. I was stuck at this shop, right? And I couldn't say anything or couldn't do anything with the risk of getting fired. And I couldn't afford to lose my job, obviously. I needed the money. So I just had to keep my head down, lay low, keep to myself, and not say anything. Now, like I said, I myself was not participating in all these scams, obviously. But I was still doing normal, honest, if you want to call honest, old school, then I was doing honest, old school mechanic work like it's supposed to be done. But as soon as, like I said, as soon as another shop opportunity opened up at another shop, and I took it and I left Tuffy and went elsewhere, then I spoke up, right? Like I said, I went directly to the GM, and that particular GM oversaw 3 different Tuffy locations in that area. And they refused to believe anything. They've refused to take any of it seriously. They refused to take any of it into account. They were not having it at all. They were not looking into it. They were not investigating. Nothing. They didn't care. And like I said, they either didn't care because they either just didn't believe it, or they just didn't care, or they themselves were probably aware of it already, and they may even been in on it themselves. They may also have been a part of this scam. Who knows? But like I said, took it to them. They didn't do anything. So then I decided to 2 years ago or so, I decided to make a YouTube video, the first YouTube video on this subject. And like I said, I had a way smaller following back then than what I do now. Don't get me wrong. I still have a small following, obviously, but it is significantly larger now than what it was 2 years ago. So what I was hoping to achieve with this particular video is, since I have a slightly larger following now, that I had the hopes that maybe, just maybe, this video might reach more people. And if I can help, if this video could help, even if, here's the thing, even if this video helps one single person from getting scammed at one of these shops, that's enough for me. It's worth it. Even if one person gets helped and doesn't get scammed, that's worth it to me. But I'm trying to reach as many people as I can reach with this PSA. Just letting you guys know, like I said, this is stuff that I personally, myself, have had witnessed at working at this shop, right? And like I said, I'm not saying it happens at every Tuffy location. This was just happening at this particular Tuffy location. This is just what I saw. But it could damn well be happening at other Tuffy locations too. We don't know. And like I said, this isn't just exclusive to Tuffy. This could be happening at literally any mechanic shop. Any shop could be operating similar scams. So I'm just telling you guys in general to just keep your eyes open. If something doesn't feel right, it's probably not. If something seems too good to be true, it probably is. You know what I mean? Just be aware. You know what I mean? Do more research on stuff. Don't get scammed out of thousands of dollars on imaginary car repairs. be very cautious of the shops and the mechanics that you are taking your car to. You know what I mean? And that's really the point of this video. But this is going to do it for now. This is going to conclude this video. And like I said, as always, I appreciate you, and we will see you in the next video.